everyone. Today I'd like to talk about something I've personally observed over and over again, not just in my life, but in lives of other people, especially those who are deeply connected to a sense of purpose, calling, and spiritual evolution. There is a specific pattern or mechanism that takes place right before a major shift, and almost nobody talks about it. When your soul evolves faster than your environment, your external life can start to feel like it's cracking, like everything is falling apart. And it's happening not because there is something wrong with you or because you did something wrong or bad. It's happening because you literally outgrew the environment, the circumstances, and basically the container you're in. This is one of the ways how God, life, the universe, your higher self, whatever word you prefer to use, moves people who are on a soul path, people who were never meant to stay stagnant or shrink themselves to fit in situations, places, relationships that are no longer serving them or have never served them in the first place. This is how this dynamic works in real life. When your inner state upgrades and your external environment stays the same, this mismatch becomes impossible to ignore. It's like it's screaming at you. The old environment can no longer hold the new version of you. So that's why it's happening. And it starts to destabilize everything. Like things start to break, weird inconveniences start to pile up. The energy becomes to feel chaotic and heavy. The circumstances that used to be fine become just unbearable. Relationships are falling apart. Or you just may feel that inner knowing that it's time for you to move. If that's what you're going through, I want you to understand this is not punishment, this is not failure, and this is not you losing control. It's just a sign or a signal that the cycle is over and it's time for you to transition. Now you can ask, and that's absolutely fair, by the way, what about free will? If life is pushing me out of a certain situation, a place, or relationship, can't I just stay? And the answer is yes, you do have free will and you can absolutely do whatever you want. But there is one nuance no one is actually talking about. For souls who are on a purpose-driven path, free will still exists, but it's limited by alignment. So what does it mean exactly? Well, as I said, you do have free will and you can choose whatever you want until your choice takes you away from where God, your higher self, your soul is trying to move you. So if you're trying to stay in the place where your soul has outgrown, what ends up happening is that life starts to reorganize all around you. Opportunities start to dry up, situations stop working, relationships are falling apart, you lose peace, and the doors that should logically open for you just all of a sudden slam shut. I want you to understand that this is happening not because you're doing something wrong. It's happening because you're trying to use your free will in a direction where your soul has no real permission to stay, really. So that's the catch. I know it feels brutal, it feels unfair, it feels like your entire life is collapsing and there's absolutely nothing you can do. But in reality, that's just a gentler way of redirecting you, and it's just becoming less and less gentle because you're resisting. This dynamic showed up very clearly in my own life about a year and a half ago when I lived in California. At that time, I was laid off from PayPal, and it's been 4 months, and I was actively interviewing with tech companies, and my plan was very logical. I was pretty much proud of myself. I thought that I'm super open, and whichever tech job I get, I will relocate. I was hoping to stay in California, that it's not going to be Ohio or North Dakota. And logically, that made perfect sense because I was already in a huge tech hub in California, right? Like, what can go wrong? But for months, nothing moved, I swear. And it's not because I was not getting interviews. I actually made it to the final round with 11 companies. But every single time, I swear, something strange would happen. Something that was absolutely outside of my control. Like the team has reorganized, or the role has closed, or my offer was frozen. I was so angry. I had no idea what was going on. I just could not believe what was unfolding. So logically, it made absolutely no sense. But energetically, it made perfect sense. Because deep down, I knew I was supposed to move to Hawaii. I was actually supposed to move there in 2022 when I first got there. At that time, I worked remotely at PayPal, and I actually moved with all my belongings. Like I sold everything in Chicago. And then what ended up happening is that I received an email on my birthday on June 6th that we're actually going back to the office. And I had a conversation with my manager who told me that I had 1 month to come back. I remember this feeling of despair. I didn't know what to do. I was trying to find a remote job during this month, but nothing really worked. And I had to go back to Chicago. I got scared. I was not ready for this uncertainty and this level of reorganization of my life that would be needed from me. And I was just in no position to do that at that time. I regretted it so many times because when I eventually came back to Chicago, which was supposed to be for just a few months to get an internal approval to be able to work remotely so that I can go back to Hawaii, it ended up happening 4 months and 5 months. I ended up signing a lease and staying in Chicago, and my life became a nightmare. So, this is another thing. If you are being stubborn and you are acting out of alignment, your life becomes horrible. Maybe that's a topic for another video, but I'm just gonna tell you that I regretted it so many times that I was too afraid to stay in Hawaii in 2022. So, and this time in California, it was 2023, and I knew again I had to move, and I was like, no, not because I did not want to, but because again, I was scared of uncertainty. I knew there was a level of effort that was needed from me. And it's not like that I was lazy. No, it's because when you are in immigration for 10 years and all your life is all about survival, moving, it's just sometimes all you're craving is peace and certain moments where you can just not run anywhere, not trying to solve problems and kind of transforming your life continuously. So I just wanted to have some peace. I recently moved to California. It's just been a year, like 11 months. I remember I was talking to God and I would say, absolutely not. No, I'm good. I'm not going to go. I was so stubborn. I resisted so much. I told God, this is not happening. What do you want me to do there? Do you want me to become a beach bum in Hawaii? Like, what a wonderful plan you have for me. But then eventually I cracked open. I remember very clearly the moment when I surrendered. I was in my apartment sitting on the floor and crying. And I remember saying, okay, God, I hear you. I'm going to go to Hawaii. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know where I will end up being, but I trust you fully. I hear you. I'm going to go. I obey. And that changed everything. The next day, I received 2 remote job offers. And by the way, I do not recommend this because that's one of the reasons why I'm experiencing this major burnout right now. And I've been unable to be around my computer for a few months. But yeah, everything started to work out. A friend of mine reached out, offering me a place to stay and take care of her kid while I'm looking for housing. And I ended up leaving California a month earlier before my lease ended. So that all ended up happening not because all of a sudden I became more worthy or more qualified to get a job or strategic. It happened because I finally aligned my free will with the direction where I was being led. So some people would call it a miracle. I call it alignment. The same thing happened when I lived in Chicago in 2022. Everything was fine. I had my friend group, I had my tech job, and I was pretty much established and kind of happy where I was, but not really. And everything was fine until it wasn't. Everything started to reorganize and shift. I fell out my friend group. There was a major drama. Um, really weird neighbors moved in very close to my apartment and they started blasting music very loudly at 4 a.m. And then the front desk personnel changed, and then all of a sudden there were new people who were not really friendly and just shifted the vibe. The packages were lost, and just overall, there was coming more and more chaos. And that was a time when I was thinking of going to Hawaii for the first time. I had this weird dream of celebrating my birthday in Hawaii. And while I'm quite an adventurous person, I was still not ready to give up my entire life in Chicago, which was very nice and comfortable at that time, just to go to Hawaii. Like, for what? I knew no one, but I just had this dream. And I was thinking at that time, maybe, when my lease ends, maybe I should sell everything and just go. And that's exactly when all of this chaos started to happen. It's like, I don't know, I don't drink alcohol, but the example that comes into my mind is a bottle of champagne. You know how when you need to move, it's like as if life itself is shaking the bottle so that it eventually pushes the cork out. And that's exactly what it feels like, as if you were being this cork and the life circumstances are starting to bubble up in order to push you away from the circumstances, places where you no longer belong. And this is actually something I am experiencing right now as well in my apartment, where all my appliances started to break. It's just unbelievable. It's the first time ever happening to me. I've lived in a number of different apartments and nothing ever broke. But here, my oven, my fridge broke. I started seeing roaches, and I live in a very nice, clean building on a 32nd floor, and I'm very clean, so I've never had this problem before, and I'm terrified of roaches. So for me, it's becoming more and more pressing. Like, I've already known, I've already felt I need to move, and I've been looking for a new apartment. It's just, it has not yet appeared in reality. But I know exactly that I'm not going to stay where I am, and I'm actively looking for a new place. So that would be another example. And it always coincides with a moment of inner transformation and growth. So if you're going through something similar at the moment, if things are falling apart in your life, and if life is pushing you out of certain situations, circumstances, or places or relationships, I want you to hear this. It does not always happen because something is wrong. Sometimes it happens because something is right. You're evolving faster than your environment. Your soul is moving, and life is just trying to make sure that you no longer stay in a place where you do not belong. Life does not break things that are meant for your future. It always breaks things that you have already outgrown. So if your world feels unstable right now, maybe nothing is really collapsing. Maybe you're just being moved. And you're not alone in this. Get excited.